Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of Wolfman Jack Speaks. Guys, Mike Gastin here. I am getting over, I think what my wife would call a man cold, but I call the flu. I've been sick for a few days and now I sound like I have a career in radio. My father used to tell me that I had a face for radio. God rest his soul. I used to love that joke. I don't know why, because it was kind of an insult, but he used to say I had a face for radio. But now I've got the voice to match. I'm glad you're with me. I want to take a minute and follow up on my last video. So if you guys have a minute, I want to talk a little bit about attorneys and share a story that I experienced years back that really taught me how to best leverage an attorney. If you didn't watch it, in that last video I talked about the 3 people that you need to have in your life if you want to be successful as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and those people are an attorney, an accountant, and a banker. And in it I said, I love my attorney. People make lawyer jokes, they mock lawyers, they accuse them of being bloodthirsty and ruthless and all that stuff. But I got to tell you, a good attorney, a good lawyer is worth their weight in gold. And I love my guy. In fact, Dave, if you're watching, I love you, brother. Dave's been a phenomenal attorney for me. He's been more than an attorney, more than a trusted advisor, more than a business consultant. He's been my friend. Now I want to talk a little bit about an experience I had before I met Dave, before I was working with him. I was in my early 30s, and this really was instructive. I was going about the attorney-client relationship incorrectly. I was just inexperienced and I didn't know any better. And I want to relay a story to you to hopefully help you avoid my mistakes. So here's the thing. I was trying to buy my agency, the place I owned for 15 years, and the seller had her attorney, I had my attorney, and we were going through this process of negotiating the price, and my accountant was involved as well, and we mapped out the deal. We had the structure of the deal on the table, and then the attorneys got involved. And my attorney and their attorney just kind of went at it. And it took forever to iron out all these little details and all the representations and the warranties. And the book, the deal book was like this thick when all was said and done. Now that's typical. You're not going to have a tiny deal book because, well, this is the state of New York, my friends, and they don't call it the Empire State for nothing. But you've got all this back and forth and minutia and all these things that we have to worry about this and what about that. And being a young guy, I just thought what you did was you hired the attorney and you just let them do their thing because they were the expert. And so if my attorney said, hey, you need to do this, well, then that's what I did. And if they said you don't need to do that, then I didn't do that. And what ended up happening is the project of wrapping up the deal successfully dragged on and on and on. And as time went on, it became expensive. Now, here's the thing that really got in my craw. Part of the deal of selling the business was I was acquiring a company. The company had its own legal representation, as did the owner of that company. So as she was selling the business, she was racking up legal fees. But who was going to pay for that? Well, the company was going to pay for that. So every minute that went by, I was paying for that attorney's time. And of course, I was paying for my attorney's time. And long and short of it, I paid a lot of money. Now, it wasn't outrageous. It didn't bankrupt me. It wasn't highway robbery. But I probably paid twice what I should have paid. But there was no one to blame but myself. Now, I didn't recognize that at first. I was pissed off about it, and all this was expensive, and I was looking all around, who could I blame for how much this has cost? But at the end of the day, I learned the hard way that I had to look in the mirror because it was my fault. So let me tell you how I discovered that. Not long after closing on the business, my wife and I bought a house. This same attorney said, hey, I'll be there for the closing for you, great. And so he showed up. Now this guy is a phenomenal attorney. He's really well known in our city. He works for a billionaire on some of his real estate stuff and personal transactions. I mean, this guy's a heavy hitter. He's a member of multiple country clubs, probably on boards all over the region. This guy's a heavy hitter, and he's a good man. He's a smart guy. And my stuff is like a pimple. In fact, my little house purchase and closing, he was doing that more as a courtesy to me and just to show respect to some young kid who didn't know what the hell he was doing. That would be me, by the way. At least it was me. Now I'm an old guy. Look at this. Ooh, yeah. So we're sitting there, we do the closing, and afterwards we're sitting at a table, he and I just going through a couple documents, and just the two of us. And he said, Mike, I want to tell you a little story. I was like, okay. The story goes like this. There was a New York City attorney right in the heart of Brooklyn, hubbub, busy, hectic. He was in a practice. It was just nuts, putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week, trying to make partner and just working his little rear end off. And one day, he just kind of got sick of it. And he said to his family, let's get out of the city. So he quit his job. He had some savings. They packed up and they moved a little upstate into the Catskills. They just landed in some picturesque little town, bought a little house, settled down, was really excited about the pace of life, and he just went into practice for himself. He hung a shingle out there, and he was the only attorney in town, and he figured it's going to be great. No competition, nice pace of life, nice village, nice people. I am set. This is going to be fantastic. And for 3 years, that guy starved. He starved. He couldn't get any business. Nobody knocked on his door. There was, just little picayune stuff, but nothing of substance. He couldn't feed his family, and he was starting to run out of money. And right when he thought he couldn't make it any longer, the worst thing in the world happened. Another attorney showed up and hung out his shingle. And the guy's like, what am I going to do? I'm already starving to death. I'm already not making it as an attorney, and this guy's showing up and going to take some of my business? He was beside himself. But you know what? The next thing he knew, he was making more money than he'd ever made in his life. Now that's the story that he told me, and I kind of sat there like confused at first, and maybe you're confused too. I don't get it. Some of you got it. Here's the deal. Attorneys make work for each other. And that's what this guy was trying to tell me. So when you have attorneys involved and you just kind of let them do their thing, they're going to create work for each other. They're not doing that on purpose. But the nature of what they do is to mitigate and eliminate risk. And each side is looking for all the risk, and they're trying to identify the risk and eliminate the risk. And when I eliminate my risk, well, that's creating risk for your client, and that's not acceptable. And on it goes, and the meter is running. You pay for attorneys by the hour, typically. And so what he was trying to help me understand is, Mike, you've got to take control of the process. You can't just allow your attorney to run reckless with your work. Now, a good attorney doesn't have to soak you and then give you the lesson. A good attorney will help you understand that on the front end. Attorneys are dealing with all kinds of high-level people, highly educated, highly experienced people. Other attorneys, they're dealing with real estate developers, they're dealing with entrepreneurs and bankers and just all kinds of MBAs and professionals and so on. They're dealing with savvy people, and they're not assuming that they have to educate you. And this guy realized that I was an unhappy camper for good reason, but he realized what the problem was. The problem was I didn't understand my role in the relationship. And so that little anecdotal story helped illustrate for me the problem and the pain that I was feeling, and helped me look in the mirror and say, next time, I have to take control. Now, what does that look like? Essentially, what I try to do now with my attorney, and as I said, my buddy Dave is phenomenal, but we have this relationship where it's like, I've got a situation. I'll say, Dave, what's the upside? What's the downside? He'll give me the best and worst case scenarios. He'll give me multiple pathways that I can take. I'll ask him, what do you advise in this situation? He'll tell me what he thinks I should do, but ultimately the decision lies with me. I'm not letting go of the reins and saying, you decide. I'm saying upside, downside, options, pathways, outcomes, what do you advise? And then I am the one who has to decide how much risk am I willing to take? How much upside am I willing to chase after? How much downside am I willing to accept if things go sideways? And then I make the final determination. And the great thing about my guy is he'll never let me do something that's really bad for me. But on the other hand, if I make a decision that doesn't line up exactly with what he recommends, he doesn't take it personally. It's not his job to be hurt, to say, oh, you didn't listen to me. He doesn't get his nose bent out of shape. He's not like Todd from accounting at your office. This isn't personal for him. He wants to do a great job for his clients. He wants them to make well-informed decisions, and he'll stand by you no matter what decision you make. And that, my friends, is how an attorney relationship should look. And that is how I learned to grow into that, to not let go of the reins and to embrace my role in the process. Guys, I hope this was useful for you. I hope that none of you are suffering from man colds. And if you are, or if you're a mom out there with a cold, God bless you, because you never get a break. No matter what you feel like, the show must go on. But men, ladies, I thank you for your time. I love each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.